one of the ward councillors most affected, David Carter, and particularly Marisha Rudgley, who from the antisocial behaviour team I know has been working 24/7 to try and deal with this problem. Now, I had a speech prepared for you, but actually I got an email this afternoon from a person who runs a sporting club in Harlow that I think sums up what's been going on, and I have to read this out. And I think this would make much better than a speech. And this person has no agenda, is far from being racist, runs a very successful sporting club, doesn't want me to name the club because they fear retribution. Following on from our conversation, our sports club has become victims of continued vandalism, antisocial behaviour, violent threats, racial abuse, trespassing, and young children have been subjected to young males exposing themselves and XXX in front of them by alleged travellers and XXX. The club has made calls to 999 for assistance. Parents have made complaints to officers whilst in attendance. Emails have been sent to officers which we've had no further follow-up. We have been told to call 101, which you can ring for anything up to 10 minutes with no reply. We are then given an extension number to which no one replies and there is no answer phone. Our building is being vandalised on a daily basis by children and from alleged travellers when they are in the area. Our staff, children, parents and members who are having training or using the facility are being subjected to verbal and racial abuse. We have very angry parents and frightened children and very little, if any, support from the police to solve this ongoing problem. Your help would be gratefully appreciated. Now, I've had hundreds, literally hundreds, and I'm sure the councillors who are here today have had that as well, hundreds of emails like that. And my issue is as follows. I respect you for coming, Nick, and yes, you came twice, and when the government minister came, you came here, and I'm very grateful to that, and particularly to the individual work of individual police officers in Harlow. However, yes, you have no operational control, but there is still no strategy on your website to deal with travellers across the traveller problem across Essex. And you have strategy for other areas. Why do we not? It doesn't just afflict Harlow, what has been going on, although we've been living a nightmare for the last since last October, but clearly there needs to be a strategic view across the whole of Essex. The second thing is, in my view, and the view of many residents who've written to me, there has been an inconsistent commitment to the use of the law. Yes, there have been 10 Section 61s. I cannot understand why, at the moment, we've got 13 plus caravans in Catherine's, and yet the law clearly says if there are 6 or more caravans, they can be issued with a Section 61. Why that has not happened straight away. And that has happened time and time again, and it seems to me that when Section 61 has been issued, they've come about because of public pressure rather than because of consistent use of the law. And just putting Section 61 aside for a moment, if you look at the law, as I have done and checked with the House of Commons Library, and the government minister came here and set out the relevant measures. There were numerous other things, Section 62, Section 69, there were a whole load of laws passed to deal with problems of acid parties and trespass on public and private land. And if there was a clear and consistent use of the law from the beginning, I believe that we wouldn't have faced the problems that we have today. Now, I've said publicly, and I say it again, we need a policy of zero tolerance. I don't believe there is one person in this room, I don't believe there is one person in this room who is against travellers. I'm not against travellers, they have a right to live as everyone else. But there are 4,000 people on the waiting list in Harlow who cannot go and camp in a field or trespass in someone's garden. And if they did, they'd be arrested straight away. So if there is one rule for homeless people in Harlow who don't have a council house, there should be the same rule applied equally for those who are breaking the law. Now, I don't know whether they are travellers or not. Those who break the law should be applied equally. So in summary, we need a commitment and consistent use of the law by the police and the authorities. We need to ensure that there is a proper strategy across Essex. Yes, I accept the council, politicians, all of us have a role in this, but it needs to be a #1 strategy. As I said on the radio to you, we've done incredible work on domestic violence, which we have a big problem with in Essex. We need the same commitment, same strategy. It should be on your website as to how we deal with this traveller problem And as I say, we need a policy of zero tolerance, because every time we give travellers who are doing illegal encampments the green light or don't act straight away,
there's no doubt that this is a really difficult issue, and as Robert says, there's been various meetings and various people have got together. I accept it's a really difficult issue. I think it's important to talk about Section 61 first, because it's mentioned quite a lot, but I think it's important to actually explain what Section 61 allows the police to do. Firstly, it's important to understand that an unlawful encampment going onto someone's land in itself isn't a crime. It's not a criminal offence. No. Again, trespass is a civil matter. It's not a crime. Section 61, in certain circumstances, allows the police to direct that group to leave that land. Firstly, the landowner has to ask the police to enforce it. So the landowner must not want that group there. It's not a decision that the police can make on their own. So be it Harlow District Council, Essex County Council, or a private person, if they don't ask the police to act, we've got no power to act. The group has to be there. If I can explain this, I'm happy to take questions. The group have to be there to live, for residence, and that's not an issue in this case. And then there are 3 criteria that are really important to understand before Section 61 is in play. There either has to be criminal damage caused, harassment caused to the landowner or their family, and then thirdly, and importantly, and the main issue, 6 or more vehicles on that land. But that opens up the law for us to use if it's appropriate to do so. It's not a blanket, we will use it. And there are set guidelines that we follow, and we have to consider a lot of factors before we use Section 61. But it still doesn't make it a criminal offence. Even if there are 6 or more vehicles, 10 vehicles, however many vehicles, it's still not a crime. As Robert said, we've issued 10 Section 61 notices, so on 10 occasions since October, we've asked that group of travellers to move from the land that they're on.
Somewhere else?
There is no power, the police have no power to move a group from a town, from any location. We can only ask them.
Why can't they never go to Epping? Why can't they not go to a surrounding area?
We can only ask them. We can only ask them.
That's why.
We can only ask them to move from that piece of land. So if they're on a piece of Harlow District Council land, we can only move them from that Harlow District Council piece of land. If they then move 50 yards down the road, 100 yards down the road, onto Essex County Council land, the process starts again. Another really important point, that Section 61, our only power in this case, and I'll cover Section 62, which is a slightly different act, but if the encampment is on a highway, a road, and in Harlow, that's more than a road. That's the grass verges on the side of the road as well. That's a lot of Essex County land. Section 6, we can't use Section 61. So the group on Southern Way and the group on Catherine's, I think, are technically on a highway. They're on a grass verge on the side of the road, but that is a highway by definition. So we have no power to use Section 61. Section 62...
Also a clear way.
Yes, please.
Are you, sorry?
On the document I've got here, it says, swift action should be taken to encampment is located in contaminated land, or where the encampment is very close to a busy highway. Now, wouldn't you agree that 2nd Avenue, Catherine's Way and Southern Way are busy avenues?
That's a consideration for us. So
you can take swift action. I don't think you need full action.
Well, in certain circumstances we can't, because it's on a highway. So we have no power on a highway. Ignoring that, and I take your point, if they're not on a highway, the position on a road is without a doubt a consideration for us. But it's a consideration. It doesn't mean we have to or should take action, but it's a consideration.
Possibly
in an encampment, and you don't need those precursors. You don't need 6 or more vehicles. You don't need damage. But Section 62 gives me a power to move that group to a temporary transit site in the local authority. So for me to move that group, there has to be somewhere for me to send them.
Section 62 states that they can be moved outside of the local authority area, and they can be moved for a minimum of 3 months.
True, it has to be Essex, so it has to be within the county.
No, it can be within Harlow Council. It says local authority. It doesn't mention which local authority.
The Harlow Council has no authority.
That That is the section 62 quote, sir.
My point being, my understanding is that it has to be within the local authority, and the local authority is either Harlow District Council or Essex County Council. My point being...
Yeah. Greg, we've got...
Which for our life savings we have bought 10 years ago. Okay?
Pasture land.
Our land, we bought it.
Pasture land.
We bought 10 years ago.
Pasture land, you wanted to put caravans on. And you got told no.
We bought land. We got bought land 10 years ago. And we got put off it last October. Me was sentenced for 6 months. Me and 10 more men sentenced to jail. Didn't get a chance to speak in the court inside the middle of London.
Got 4 months.
Because I'm a travelling person.
And that was our kids was there.
And that's why I'm in Harlow since last October, because I was jailed for my own ground and put up my own home to the side of the road again. That's why I'm in Harlow.
Thank you for making this point. Thank you.
And I'm up union down and travelling people. We can't change who we are. The same as she can't change who she is.
Can I just,
Of course you
can I
can.
just say something? I'm going to be calm, I promise.
No, it's okay.
All I'm saying is, we're not saying get rid of travelling people. We don't want you in Harlow, that's very true. But what we do excuse me, I'm trying not to be racist. Stop it.
Please, one at a time. We'll come back. I'll come back.
It's true, we don't want you in Harlow. But what we don't want in Harlow is you coming and causing trouble and costing us so much money.
In which
we
way?
pay council tax.
Is it for garbage? I pay council tax. I pay council tax. I'm a gypsy. Sorry, look. I'm a gypsy. I'm a traveller. As you call me, I'm a taker from the side of the road. Yes, I pay tax.
Who do you pay it to?
Who do you pay to?
I pay to council. I pay to
Also, we pay to the council. We're treated. Same way as she are treated.
Thank you. Can I please ask you to be quiet?
Did our children need toilets? Did our children need clean water? Did anybody come to us and ask us? No, they did not. What's your sole problem? Because he cannot walk a dog. That is your problem. He can't walk a dog on a green piece of land. So you're putting a dog before a human being.
Right.
Come on, I've had enough.
I've got no problem with the travellers whatsoever. They're people like the rest of us. They're entitled to a life. What I have got a problem with is the rubbish, the excrement. They do it all down the pathways, all over the place. It's there. I've been down there again today. It's all down the pathways. I don't want to walk past that. Also along the cycleway, there are bushes all the way down. A few weeks ago, when they went for the last time, this is the 4th time they've been in that area, Kia went along there and took 2 days to clear all the rubbish and excrement out of the bushes. It's all back again now, and they don't give a monkey. No. I'm not against people, I'm against what they're doing. Yeah. Now, if I went down the road with my dog and the dog did a business on the floor and I didn't pick it up, I'd get fined. They get nothing. Nothing. And that's what I am against. If they want to be treated like everybody else, then they can't act like they're acting. I've got no problem with the people themselves. That's that's the problem. It's what they do and what they bring. And I've been down there today, and already what their jobs are, or what they seem to do, is driveways.
And look at the vehicles.
And they come down, they do a driveway, and then the driveway that they've collected from it's in the bushes along Catherine's Way.
The big issues of travellers is 1 in 4 are homeless because they have nowhere legally to put their caravan. In 2010, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission identified a shortage of 5,300 pitches. And if you are talking about costs, if you read their documents, you will find that Bristol City Council had a very similar problem in the mid-90s, and it was costing them up to £350,000 a year to police that. Yeah? So they decided, why not invest to save? And that's their words, not mine. And so they built 1 transit site and 1 traveller site, and they reduced their enforcement cost down to £5,000 per year.
I've already got one now.
The people are coming on to that. People paid their rent, they paid their council tax on those sites, and those sites paid for themselves. Yeah? As for Essex, Conservative councils over 26 years, 5 councils that I can name off the top of my head, Southend, Brentwood, Tendring, Thurrock and Rochford, have not provided a single site since it was a statutory duty in 1968. In 1994, John Major's government, as well as changing that, they introduced the requirement, they encourage travellers to buy land rather than create the sites. And what did they do?
I want to respond to some of the things that have been said, which I think hopefully will answer. First of all, I genuinely believe that most people are not racist, and that most people are not against travellers, and I will certainly not against groups of people or people who call themselves travellers. And yes, they have a right to a home, but as I said, 4,000 people in Harlow don't have a home. They're on the waiting list. They can't go and camp outside your house or anyone else's house. They'd be arrested. All I'm saying is that the law should be applied equally. Now, I met with some leading figures of the travellers community a few weeks ago. I think you were in the room with me. And I was basically told that if we don't provide sites, they will carry on doing what they're doing. So in essence, they're holding a gun to our head. And they're saying, we will break the law until you give us what you want. Now, what about a resident who comes and sees me in a surgery every time I have a surgery, and they're a family of 6 living in a 2 tiny bedroom flat? They can't break the law and say, if you don't give me a house, I'm going to do this, I'm going to camp on a field, or commit alleged antisocial behaviour, and so on and so forth. Now, the issue of the transit camp, it may be that David is right, that we need transit camps in Essex, but first of all, Harlow has its, whatever other council has done in 68, 94, I wasn't around then, but Harlow has its more than its fair share than any other districts in the county. And the other question is that with transit sites, and history, the record has shown this, yes, it may have worked in Bristol, but first of all, a lot of the travellers, if there are different groups of travellers, they won't go on the same transit site because they don't get on with each other. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, even if you had 10 transit sites in Essex, who's to say a new group, and they all fill up overnight, who's to say a new group of travellers wouldn't come in and start doing the same thing from somewhere else? So we would just be, that might not happen, but we don't know that it would happen. And my question is to the police, that yes, you've got to apply the law and you've got to gather all the evidence and so on, but as I read out in the beginning, that letter from the person who runs the sporting club, who really was worried about threats of intimidation. There is clear, she is not a racist, there's not one racist bone in her body. What she has done, that person, I shouldn't even say it was a female, but what that person's done for Harlow and for sports in Harlow is extraordinary. And for young people of all shapes and sizes and all backgrounds. And yet her view is that the police do not respond when they raise the issues. Now that to me is unacceptable, and that's just not just one email. The reason why I read that email is because I get emails like that every single day now, for months, and David has pointed it out. So what we should take back from this meeting is that the police need to give this a priority. They need to respond when residents do raise issues, because you say residents should give us the evidence, but when the residents give the evidence, you don't always follow it up. And that is what the residents are telling me, and I don't believe the residents are going to lie to me. Why would they? And so that needs to be looked at, and as I said, there needs to be a much more consistent view, in my view, of how the law is applied, because recently the travellers all came to Newhall Field, where the building is going on. Now, they were given a Section 61. I was very glad that they were given a Section 61, but as I understand it, I was told, I got an email saying it was because it's a leisure field, but it isn't. There's building going on there. So I'm very happy they issued a Section 61. And they seem to be able to issue Section 61s on certain occasions, but the law is being applied inconsistently. And I think where you can come in, Chief Commissioner, is to set out on your website how you believe the law should be applied. I understand you can't say to the police, you go and arrest this person, all that kind of thing. You have no operational control, but you need to set out the strategy of dealing with travellers. We need to work with Essex Council. If we do need another transit site, that may be an issue, but as I say, it has advantages and disadvantages. We need to ensure that there is a strategy so that people understand how the law is going to be applied, because when I speak to the Commons Library and when I speak to other officials in government, they say completely different things about Section 61 or Section 69 or whatever it is to what I hear this evening. I'm not saying what they know it more than me. The police, of course, know the law 10 times more than I do. But there are clearly different views about how this law should be applied. So we need to know on your website what the law says and what it actually means. And so the residents can have a guidance and then come to you and say, actually, we believe that these laws are not being applied properly. And in terms of applying sites in the country, I think there needs to be a national debate.